let's get into the big topic of open source, something that we actually say at Red Hat.
We have a
This is so
we
awesome.
are an open culture that believes
actually
in
a big
importance of
piece
What is that process that a developer, or let's say a
As the
developer
Kubernetes
should go
ecosystem really boomed,
Hello and welcome to this week's Ask an OpenShift Admin Office Hours live stream. I am your co-host, Andrew Sullivan, joined as always by my co-host. Yeah, we're co-hosts, Johnny
Yeah.
Rickard.
What's up, buddy? How's it going? Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's only been quite literally a half a world since I saw you.
I know.
Yeah, it was good to see you. Good to hang out in person for the first time in ages. I think since 2019.
Yeah.
It just so happened that we had to go all the way to Singapore to do it. So yeah, it's good to get all that done. Nothing like spending. I think it was 26 or 27 hours to get home.
Yeah.
Time
Yeah.
zones are hard.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes. I think for me with like the layovers and everything, it was like a 33-hour jaunt to get there, and then
Yeah. Oof.
you saw me there. I couldn't sleep at all, so it was a nightmare for me.
Yeah. Well, we are joined today by Jamie Parker, who is on the product management team for OpenShift logging and observability. So, welcome to the stream, Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is one that we said before. We told you that there's been a lot of questions. There's been a lot of interest in OpenShift logging and the stuff that's going on there. The move from Elasticsearch to Loki, the move from Fluentd to Vector. So I hope our community has come prepared. Or let me rephrase that. I hope they throw tomatoes and not rocks. Maybe.
Yeah, me too.
So, but no, it's. I think this will be a great one. I'm looking forward to it. There's a ton of stuff that, quite honestly, I just don't know about it. Like I've been aware of these changes, but aside from the surface level, like we're changing things to improve. I don't really know what all that means, and I'm also particularly excited about the and observability in our title here because observability is a bigger thing, right? It's bigger than
Yes,
just logging.
It's huge.
So. Frozen tomatoes. That's not very nice, Christian. All right. We'll get to that in just a minute. I think, normally we do our top of mind topics. And quite honestly, Johnny and I have both been gone for 2 weeks, so we just haven't kept up with a lot of things. But I wanted to take an opportunity here to mention a couple of things. So one, and first, I did look and see that the upgrade path to OpenShift 4.12 is still in fast, so it has not been promoted to stable yet. That's normal. That's perfectly expected. I remember, was it 3 weeks ago, Johnny, when we had Scott on? Scott was saying that normally it takes somewhere between 45 and 60 days. So we're not to that point yet. So don't be worried if you don't see the upgrade path. And also, I'll point out that the EUS to EUS upgrade path, that doesn't become available until it's promoted to stable. 4.11 to 4.12 upgrades are promoted to stable. So just keep an eye on that. Other than that, I wanted to take a moment and really say thank you to our audience, especially all the Red Hatters who watch, because both Johnny and I were absolutely blown away by the number of folks who came up to us when we were going around and doing the thing, and they just came up to say hi and say thanks and talk about the stuff that we've done on the stream. And really, I can't thank you all enough. Like, it's really, really awesome, not just to get that positive reinforcement and positive feedback, but to know you're listening and you care. That's why we're here.
Yeah, it was awesome, especially like in Singapore when we had like we're taking pictures with people. I thought that was awesome. It was amazing.
Yeah, and same thing in Dublin, and I wish that one of us could have gone to one of the Americas. Although the folks down in Buenos Aires, that's all happening right now. That's happening this week. So
Yep.
I think they're doing the keynote right about now. So it's just been. It was really great, and it was a lot of fun. And please don't hesitate to reach out, whether you're a Red Hatter, whether you're a customer, a partner, whether you're just someone who's passing through. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to us. We're always happy to do whatever we can to help and talk about anything that's interesting and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I was in Dallas, and the weather, it was just so crazy. And it made it challenging to meet people, but like the little bit of getting out and interacting that I did, I was able to like catch up, and we got some positive feedback from there. So when I told them that we were doing the logging talk when we got back, there's the one guy that actually asked for it like directly was like, yes, it's about time, I can't wait. So it's a good way to come back.
Khalid, I don't know if network observability. I don't think we're going to go into details. I feel like I'm answering.
I can talk about that.
Okay. I didn't know if that's something that you would want to talk about, or if we should go and poke at Mark Curry or.
Mark Curry is going to be the expert on it, but I can at least cover a bit of it.
Okay, awesome, because I know that there's been some questions about that as well. So kind of moving on from there, for anybody who's watching us live, don't hesitate to reach out in chat, kind of whatever platform you're on, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitch, etc. All of the chat gets aggregated into our interface here. So we'll do our best to answer those questions as they come up. If you're not watching us live, if you're watching a recording or listening to a recording or anything, you can still reach out to us, and we'll do our best to respond, to get answers, to include those in future streams. So for me, you can reach out to me at andrew.sullivan@redhat.com. Sorry, andrew.sullivan@redhat.com. Or at Practical Andrew across all the various social media platforms, Twitter and Reddit and so on and so forth. I feel like I should get a Mastodon account now. I don't know.
About that time.
Yeah, that's a whole spider's nest that I'm not sure I want to dig into yet. You can also reach out to Johnny, JONNY at redhat.com, no H in there, or at JRockTX1 across all the various social media platforms. Another great way to get in touch with us. So for internal folks, the normal, chat and email methods. But for anyone, you can reach out to us via the Kubernetes Slack. So Kubernetes Slack has a OpenShift users channel, or they're called channels on Slack. I got to think of all the different chat platforms and all the different terms that they use, right? So there is a Slack channel that you can reach out to us on that we try and haunt frequently. Is there an IRC channel? I don't. Probably. Honestly, so Red Hat still uses IRC. Engineering especially uses IRC for a lot of things. I am up to 4 chat platforms, and I don't have the bandwidth to add another one. So I would request Milra. Apologies for butchering your name there. Slack is probably the easiest one if you want to do the real-time interaction thing. Plus, there's a whole community. It's like 5,000 people on that Slack channel now. The link is just up above. So it's that kubernetes.slack.com link that was posted by... you're on YouTube, so it'll be the OpenShift or the Red Hat user.
Oh, I'm posting it again, but I fat fingered I typoed the name. How
dare you?
I'm the worst.
I thought we had a shortcut for that.
We do, but I couldn't remember it naturally.
It has been 3 weeks. So yes, today's stream is about OpenShift logging and observability. This is a office hours. So office hours means that you can ask us about anything and everything that's on your mind. Johnny and I will do our best to answer those questions, probably in chat. We'll bubble up questions and talk about them occasionally, but we really want to give Jamie enough time to talk about all the stuff that she's got going on, because like I said, this has been a super popular topic, and I want to make sure that you all have plenty of time to ask questions so that we can get through that. So all right. I think did I miss anything, Johnny? Did I ramble through all the normal stuff?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. So Jamie, I will toss it over to you.
Okay.
I know you had a few slides to kind of frame the conversation and set some stuff up. So to the audience, feel free. Let's keep interacting in chat and all that. Johnny and I will certainly talk through that, and we'll ask questions as they come up with Jamie. But we can definitely really go into conversation afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a cluster here if we want to show anything off.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Looks like that came up. So I do want to talk about OpenShift logging. Of course, I'm the PM for logging. But I also want to talk about observability. What a lot of people don't realize is that we do have an observability platform within OpenShift. So I want to talk and touch a little bit on all of that today, and talk about network observability is included in there. So we have an observability strategy in the observability program team. And so we want to develop one unified, consistent, simplified footprint that can work across all of the environments. So public cloud, on-prem, and edge. It'll be the same platform for observability for all of those. And to do that, we're trying to break down the silos of logging, the silos of metrics, the silos of tracing, and we're trying to turn it into concepts. So we have several concepts here for data collection. So we can do that with metrics using Prometheus. We can do that with logs for using Vector. Data analytics. So querying metrics, filtering logs. We'll go a little bit more into detail in that in a minute. Visualization. So we are trying to build an out-of-the-box observability platform experience within the OpenShift Web Console natively.
And to be clear, Jamie, it's an overall strategy for how to bring visibility, how to bring insight into the multiple pools, multiple sets of data. So,
Absolutely.
networking metrics is a part of that. Logging
Yes.
data is a part of that. And a bunch of other stuff, I'm sure.
Yes, in cluster metrics, lots of different metrics on your OpenShift platform. So, day 2, you log into OpenShift and you have all of this available to you. So data delivery, normalizing the data with observability operator, and then also transporting logs wherever you may need them with Vector. And then storage. So we can store metrics with Prometheus, store logs with Loki. So and then we have third parties integrations with all of these. So it's a whole platform within OpenShift that exists already. And just to talk about what is happening now with OpenShift 4.12, logging 5.6. So you can have topology spreads with Prometheus and Alert Manager. So you can spread your different alerts across different areas depending on how your clusters are set up. You can create alerting rules based on those platform metrics. We have runbook URLs in the alerting UI. So if you have a runbook, you can go ahead and run that to get some normalized alerting. And then we're always working on improving our whole UI experience. So now we've improved the metric selection. So you can select metrics and search for those easier within the UI. For logging specifically, we are now logging to Splunk and to Google Cloud. We had a lot of customer requests for cluster IDs to be added to log records so that people can search through those, aggregate those a little bit more easily. We're now fully released Vector in place of Fluentd. And then we have additional log exploration options in the UI. And I have a slide that shows those in a minute. So you can search through your logs a lot better. And then we're starting to introduce OpenTelemetry. So we have a tech preview of OpenTelemetry for tracing. So this is just what we have going on now. We're always building on all of this when, we always are looking for feedback from, users, customers, internal people, because we want to make this a really well thought out platform. And just to talk about all of the open source projects that we're using for this platform, we have Kafka, Prometheus, Tempo, Thanos, of course, Loki and Vector for logging, Jaeger, and OpenTelemetry. And we do contribute to all of these projects. So all across the observability platform team, we're actively contributing back into all of these open source projects.
Jamie, I'm not going to ask how we avoid copyright issues with these community names.
That is a good question. Actually, I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm sure I don't want to know. I'm just going to let it be.
But now, since the request was OpenShift logging, I can go now deeply into OpenShift logging.
Hey, and real quick before you jump in, we have
Sure.
one question from Khalid, and it's so when you upgrade your OCP, right? I'm going from 411 to 412. Will it automatically switch from the traditional OpenShift logging over to Loki, or is that something that we would have to upgrade to?
No, you would need to upgrade. Well, OpenShift, so Loki and Vector they exist, but if you're currently using the previous Elastic Stack, you would need to do a manual switch over to Vector and Loki.
Okay.
So it's not an automatic thing.
All right. So Khalid, hopefully that answered your question. If not, go ahead and ask more clarifying. We'll get it back to Jamie. All right. Thanks, Jamie.
Sure. So initially, our opening logging stack was Elastic, Fluent, Kibana. This is a fairly standard configuration. So Elasticsearch for using storage and searching, Fluent for collecting and transporting logs, and then Kibana for visualizing those logs. So after running this for a while and working with it, we made the decision to move to Loki and Vector. So this is our current logging stack. And what we found is that for our needs as a logging team, Vector and Loki performed better. So the indexing in Loki is different. Instead of indexing individual lines of logs, Loki will do log labels. And so it's a little bit of a faster performance when you're trying to parse through those logs. Vector, it has really good performance in logs per second. We found that to be more performant for our needs. There's a little bit more better support for pod labels. The nice thing about Loki is that it allows multiple tenants into one storage instance, so that we found that to be very helpful. And then there are a lot of native plugins with Vector and Loki that we've been able to utilize. So this stack we have found performs better for us overall, and then also lets us go more deeply into the observability needs that we have trying to support the observability platform.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like there's a lot more integration too with third-party components. So like
Yes.
if I don't want to use this natively, or if I don't want to use this exclusively, I can still interact with those logging mechanisms that I had before. So that's
Yes.
awesome.
And Vector is very neutral to vendors. So it's really easy to, or easier to develop the different forwarding outputs according to whatever customer needs.
Oh, that's sweet.
So right now for Vector, we have the different collectors and forwarders. These are configured as of logging 5.6. So Loki, if you want to keep your logs in cluster, so you can use Loki. That's you can install the Loki operator and use it. So Vector would collect the logs and then send them to Loki. There's a couple of advantages to doing that, but then there are users who need to send them to other places. So right now we have collectors that are configured to send logs off cluster to Stackdriver through Google. You can send your logs to CloudWatch if that's what you're using. And then many customers are using Splunk. So we have that configured to send those logs to Splunk. So, as we listen to what customers need, we create more of these forwarders and just trying to make this a more usable platform for everyone.
So I see you have GCP and the AWS stuff. Do you have integrations for the? I don't know I can't remember what it's called for Azure. But
Yeah,
it's like
the cloud or log analytics.
Okay, yeah. All right,
Yeah,
awesome.
that's coming in future. We don't have that
Okay.
yet, but that'll be in the future iteration.
Okay. Yeah, because that was a pain back in the day, like with like the old stack. So
yeah, it's
forward.
we're still building. We have a lot of things in flight that we're building out. So if anyone has anything that they particularly need, that's the good time to reach out to me, and we can take that back and evaluate.
Awesome, thank you.
And I was in the middle of a coughing fit, so I couldn't comment at the time. But I remember there being some issues with Fluentd effectively dropping messages once there was, and I don't know if there was a consistent threshold, but at some point it would basically, overwhelmed isn't the right term, but it would reach a point where it started dropping messages, which is of course an issue. So I know that was one of the major factors for looking for something else, and I think ultimately deciding on Vector, but I don't want to speak for you.
Vector we found has Vector is a lot more scalable. Vector it uses CPU a lot more flexibly. So if it gets the more logs that it ingests, the more it's able to actually scale out, use the CPU appropriately, and then get those logs where they need to go. So that was one of our big factors in deciding on vector.
Yeah, makes sense. Is it a good idea to forward logs to vRealize from Khalid?
I can't speak to whether it's a good idea. I mean, that depends on whatever the customers need, but at this moment, we don't have a native integration for that, but we can, we're certainly, if you have an RFE, we're willing to take a look at it.
I mean, I would say, if you're using vRealize Log Insight, or whatever they're calling it now, as your log aggregation, log analytics, interface, then sure, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It is, I don't know if it's a competitor, but it's certainly a peer in the broader observability, spectrum of things compared with the OpenShift observability. I'm going to say portfolio, but collection of capabilities. So yeah, if that's what you're using, there's nothing wrong with doing that, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's whatever users need. Every company, every user has different needs, so whatever they need.
Yeah, it's like Splunk, right? If Splunk is your standard for where you capture logs and you use that to do analysis, then great. There's no reason not to do that. And same thing with whatever other solution you may be using.
Yep. So on the Loki side, switching to Loki for log storage, there's a couple of advantages here. One of the biggest ones that we found is that you can use LogQL for querying logs. So just like you use PromQL for Prometheus metrics, LogQL is very similar. And so it's a really easy shift into querying for logs for many people. And that's been a very positive thing. The way that Loki uses memory is a lot more efficient. So it labels the logs and places them into chunks. So when it goes to index all of those logs, it actually indexes the chunks and the labels. So when you're going to search, the searching winds up being a lot faster because of that. The multi-tenant storage is very useful. You can write all of your logs to the same tenant from multiple Loki instances. And then there is native data isolation within that. So your security is preserved. So that's been very helpful. We've added cluster ID as of logging 5.6. So that makes it easier to search through those logs, aggregate those logs. And then when you use Loki within OpenShift as the OpenShift log store, you get a lot of log analytics that are native within the console UI. And just to show you a little bit of what that looks like. So we have the observability view here within the developer console. So you can aggregate these logs and you can search for them by namespace. There's an automatic filter for that. So you can filter by namespace, you can filter by pod, and you can filter by container, and then drill that down so that you can search more efficiently. So these are some of the things that we're trying to do within the observability platform.
Jamie, do you know, and I've seen this question come up a few times, I don't think we document. I assume that upstream it's documented, like resource requirements around like storing logs, how much, capacity gigabytes it takes, how much performance, IOPS latency is required for those types of things.
We have some recommendations on sizing, especially when you get into like AWS instance sizing. It's really hard we do have some IOPS recommendations as well. In terms of just raw storage, that's a harder recommendation because every usage is different.
Yeah.
But we do have some documented IOPS and instance type recommendations.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people used to ask, like with Elastic, well, how much capacity should I give it? Well, how much logs are your applications generating?
Yes.
There's no hard or fast rule. 10 pods doesn't mean 10 gigabytes. 10 pods might mean 1 gigabyte or it might mean 10 terabytes.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I didn't know if we had any other kind of recommendations because I haven't looked since the 4.10 days. So
we do in the OpenShift 4.12 documentation in the logging section. There are some recommendations on IOPS and instance types.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
looking through chat here, I see there's a couple of questions. I'm probably going to get these out of order. So, Heike, again, apologies for butchering names. Can you please elaborate more on multi-tenancy with Loki?
So multi-tenancy, all of the Loki instances can write to the same log instance. So you can have one log store, and Loki is built to write to object storage. So everything can funnel into that same object storage piece. And then depending on the permissions for namespaces, that will be the logs that you have access to within that storage.
So does that fit in with the sort of OpenShift Platform Plus ACM, ACS hub type model where you can have a central Loki that other clusters use? Or
That is, I don't know the full answer to that one. Maybe. We haven't really tested that out completely, and we are still working on some aspects of multi-cluster. That's on our roadmap for future. Okay. So I'm not certain of the answer to that one.
Yeah, that's fair. Wow. Sorry, words are hard. One of my customers a long time ago was like real big on the multi-cluster logging. So I mean, I think that's going to be an outstanding feature, especially like even I think that they would have been happy with the multi-tenant aspect of it, but to go multi-cluster like the way that Andrew was describing would be that would have been ideal and probably would have been a grand slam for them.
That's a big ask. It is actually on, I'm going to talk about it in a second, but that is one of our things that we are working towards.
Yeah, my mind is full of things around like hosted control planes and all this other stuff that I'm sure you're well aware of and well ahead of me on. So
yeah, if you think about it in visual terms, you're taking a flat topology and you're turning it into a cube, and it just it starts to spin, and it's a big lift.
Yeah, well, while we're on the theme of Marvel, Tesseract and all that stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Let's see. So Oscar, I see your question here about Fuse and Spring Boot. I'm not sure if you're asking specifically about those things because seems like OpenShift deployments could be easier and have more features. Are you asking about like OpenShift clusters versus Kubernetes clusters, or is there something else there? If you don't mind, just clarify there. I see you commented down below. Is there a question for you, Jamie? Is there a way to archive logs to external storage like NFS?
You would need to depend on your storage capabilities. So whatever store that you're using, your underlying storage, you would have to ship your logs through whatever that storage method advises.
Okay. And Khalid mentions if you don't utilize ODF storage here, I would assume that the Nuba aspect of ODF, which can act as an object gateway, can kind of proxy that data to wherever you want it to be at.
Yes, and you can also use ODF multi-cluster gateway, and then ODF would act as object storage for you.
Got it. Let's see, Oscar, can you help me understand how many apps can run on a basic OpenShift subscription? So yes, OpenShift is entitled on a core basis. So one entitlement is 2 physical cores or 4 hyper-threaded cores. And the number of apps is going to depend on your application, right? If your application isn't using a lot of CPU, then you can put a lot of a lot of applications in there. If your application uses a lot of CPU, then maybe it's fewer. So there's a number of factors that play into that. One thing to note, so if you go to try.openshift.com, you'll get a link to a bunch of resources there where you can get started with OpenShift. OpenShift also qualifies for the developer entitlements. So if you go to developer.redhat.com, you register for an account, or if you already have one, it's a free account, and you get up to 16 entitlements of OpenShift that you can use to deploy or as many clusters as you'd like. Again, 16 entitlements. And it's free so long as it is non-production single user use cases. So a great way to get hands-on with OpenShift. Fayaz, I'm wondering, so Sapphire is super new. I want to say it's Johnny, I don't keep up with hardware. I don't know if you do. It's
Oh.
it's less than a year old, so I'm wondering if it's just a kernel, kernel drive. The kernel in 4.10 doesn't have the drivers, but I'm curious why like 4.12 wouldn't be there. But yeah, I'm interested to see how CoreOS layering might affect that if you're able to add the driver in. Rick, you could run a 2-core subscription. You wouldn't be able to do a whole lot. So remember, control plane nodes you don't have to have entitlements for, and infra nodes you don't have to have entitlements for. So you can take things like the ingress controller pods and all that other stuff and put that either on the control plane or on infra nodes, and then basically those 2 cores would just be the worker node. Although I think the worker node, the actual kubelet and stuff like that, does reserve like half a CPU. So yeah, it would be 1.5 cores worth of application resources that you'd have available. Khalid, how to generate alerts based on logs? That was an interesting question that came up actually internally the other day as well. So Jamie, I don't know if you have something off the top of your head to help.
I do. That's actually on our roadmap to be released in logging 5.7. So we're targeting logging 5.7 for that capability.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking to see if it was possible, just flipping through documentation, proverbially scrolling, I guess, through documentation, and I didn't see anything that stood out to me. So
no, that's a big customer request, and we do have that. We're actively working on that right now.
Okay. And does logging have a similar release cadence as OpenShift? Is it?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So we try to release relatively the same for the non-EUS releases. So we're looking at May for logging 5.7, which follows OpenShift tentatively releasing in April. Yep. And then for the EUS releases, we try to release within 2 weeks.
Very cool.
So we follow a rough cadence.
Yeah, logging, like several other aspects, service mesh, OpenShift virtualization, etc. It's a what do we call them? A layered offering.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So there is not an additional entitlement, but the release cycle is decoupled from the core OpenShift. But I think all of the layered offerings generally try and follow OpenShift releases pretty closely.
Yeah, that's a one of our big feedbacks has been, please try to follow the EUS releases. So we do try.
Yeah, nothing against the ODF folks, but they seem to be the ones who often lag the most when it comes to following the OpenShift releases. But that's fine. It's a complex system that they got going on there, so I get it. Especially, Johnny, one of the things that I think you mentioned bringing up and talking about is the Topo LVM operator and being able to utilize with single node OpenShift the local disks through a CSI provisioner, which is really cool.
Yep. It is awesome.
Mira, does OpenShift support running 32-bit applications? Yeah, it's, as far as I know, 32-bit apps can run on a 64-bit processor. There's nothing wrong with that. Does it support multi-arch nodes? Yes, you can have, I believe with 4.12, we support a heterogeneous clusters. Maybe that was even in 4.11 when we added that. Because I think it was 4.8 or 4.9, we added support for ARM, or no, 4.10 was I think when it went GA. We added support for ARM, so you could have a cluster that was entirely ARM based, but you couldn't have the control plane be ARM and compute nodes be x86 or something like that. But that is, as far as I know, now supported. So a question for you, Jamie: does the logging stack use more storage if the number of worker nodes increases?
I think that would. I'd say yes, because you're going to receive a certain amount of like Kubernetes logs. So that portion would increase. But as for the rest of it, it would probably just depend on the different applications that you're running. If you're increasing the number of applications, it does make sense that log storage would increase as well. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Just adding a node, if it's not doing anything, will add a little bit of additional logs.
Right.
Because kubelet's doing its thing and all of that other stuff, and it'll generate logs that'll get sent up. But it's dependent on the applications. So in theory, you're adding more nodes because you need to scale the applications more. So there's kind of this natural assumption that, yeah, you would get more logs because you're hosting more applications.
Yes. So that it's the very frustrating technical answer of yes, but it depends.
Yeah.
As so many things do these days.
But the good part too is that it's tunable, right? So you can tune how long you store stuff locally before it gets exported out or whatever.
Correct.
So, if it's something that like if storage or persistent storage for an extended amount of time is an issue, then you can tune your operator to export that out to your long-term storage a lot sooner.
Correct. And if you're depending on your S3 source, it grows along with your needs. So.
Mira x86 supports 32-bit with no issues on all OpenShift versions. Yes, I don't know if we have documentation on that. It would probably be in the RHEL documentation, actually. So that's less an OpenShift thing and more a container thing. And the containers are RHEL because CoreOS is RHEL, just a flavor of RHEL that is specific to OpenShift and for hosting, being Kubernetes node hosting containers. So somewhere in the RHEL documentation, I'm sure that they have that, but I don't have that off the top of my head. We'll see if we can dig it up. Rick, alerting with Loki is generally super cool because the query language is similar to PromQL. I'll admit that I am not good at PromQL. I have not spent enough time with PromQL to be able to intelligently and reliably get what I need out of it. But so somewhere in my backlog of things to learn about is PromQL. Just kind of looking through chat here, making sure I didn't miss anything. Johnny, I know you sometimes keep notes of things we haven't addressed yet.
No, we're actually tracking things pretty well. I was actually starting to look up the CoreOS thing. It's
okay.
As long as CoreOS has like the multi-lib libraries, then the 32-bit thing should not be an issue. But I would have to look in the CoreOS build and see if they actually do multi-lib. I don't see why they wouldn't. But.
So yeah, sorry to kind of distract you or go down a rabbit hole there, Jamie.
No worries. They're good questions. All right. So it was a good, actually good place because we've talked about the past of logging, we've talked about the current logging, and this is the part where we talk about what's coming up next. So these are our upcoming items. So not all of these have hard dates because they're all being scoped and worked right now. But for Vector, we have HTTP forwarding, so forwarding to a HTTP target, which is a big request. Syslog forwarding, another big request. So those are coming up soon. And I mentioned multi-cluster. So multi-cluster collection and storage is on our roadmap. And again, that is it's a big way of thinking about it. Like I said earlier, you're going from a flat topology to a cube topology. So it's fairly complex, but it is in the works. Loki, the log-based alerting, like we've already talked about, was a big request. And then the zone-aware replication. So that is coming in upcoming versions. And then we're always adding more log viewing and aggregation enhancements within the console UI. And we're working on correlation. So that is something that we're working on, a correlation engine at the moment to help with not only logs, but also correlating signals across all of the observability platform. So that was, we're really looking forward to that. Let's see. And we have some blogs. So we have, this is where network observability comes in. So we do have network observability support in 4.12. It is also within the UI. And there are a lot of really exciting things coming out for it. So that's, if you're interested at all in this, I can share these blogs. These are all on cloud.redhat.com. And so we have a lot of features there. We have more details on logging 5.5 and logging 5.6, monitoring for 4.12. So lots of things that we have been working on. And lots of these blogs these are all public blogs. So, everyone's welcome to read and ask questions.
Hey Jamie, have you gotten any feedback from customers about like the new logging stack compared to the old, like have you like reached out to customers and done like surveys or whatever and been like, hey, so how's your EFK experience versus now your Loki and Vector experience? Are they like, oh yeah, it's meh, or are they like, holy crap, this is the greatest thing ever? You know, right?
We have so once again, the answer is the new stack is positive. For a couple of customers, or users, they're just so deeply embedded into EFK that is what, that's their bread and butter, and that's fine. What we're hearing from other customers is that Fluent they're having trouble scaling it. And so the move to Vector has been beneficial for them. We're having a lot of people who enjoy the vendor neutrality for Vector. So getting logs to different places. So yeah, overall, it's been a pretty positive experience.
So I guess ultimately, like the big challenge going from like the traditional logging stack to the new logging stack is going to be that migration from EFK over to, I don't even know if it's a migration. It sounds like it's more like a like replace, but going into Loki, right? Moving away from EFK exclusively and going to Loki. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's a very they're just so different. So that is it's really a clean break if you're going to move from one to the other, and that has been probably the trickiest part, is breaking from one and going to the other. And again, many customers are embedded in the EFK, but for those who are making that switch and going to Loki and Vector, the response has been positive. So it's been a good change. And
we got a question earlier, and I just want to it was, he looked it up and it looks like FIPS is not supported. Do you know? And I'm not sure if you touched on it either. I'm sorry, but do you know like when FIPS might be supported for Loki and Vector?
So that is something that we are examining within OpenShift. So I don't have an answer to that yet. That's something that we are looking at because there are OpenShift FIPS pieces and there are logging FIPS pieces. So we have to scope them both.
Gotcha.
So it's a complicated answer, but we're looking.
Always
at
does, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's never easy.
Yes, but it depends.
Yep, maybe.
Going back to that previous statement of, the modern technical answers are almost always, yes, but, or with these caveats. Or,
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's see, Andrew. Can you break down Loki sizing for OpenShift? How does the 1x size configuration relate to the number of pods spun up, instance failure domains, etc.? I will admit I know nothing about Loki sizing, so
that's something that we could probably take offline.
Okay. So, Andrew, if you'd like, follow up with me or Johnny, just andrew.sullivan@redhat.com or Johnny, Jony, at redhat.com. And we'll make sure to loop Jamie in and the rest of the team to help with specifics on sizing.
Yeah, Andrew's a Red Hatter, so.
Yeah. Yes, I am, but I know that you were talking about Andrew Bikar.
Andrew Becker.
And so for the person, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that username. We will post the slides up to Speaker Deck, which is where we normally post slides and stuff like that. So I posted the link there on Twitch. Hopefully it got spread around. So Khalid reminded us about the network observability operator.
Yes, so that's network observability. We do have that in OpenShift 4.12. We have network observability included within the UI now. And so what's coming there is a topology view where you can view the topology of your network within OpenShift. And it's really, I need to dive into it more deeply. I don't have a lot of experience talking about it, but this blog has a lot of good information about it. So once that's posted on Speaker Deck, there's that. And, if one of the things I wanted to touch on before we ended is if there are any questions about the observability platform, so logging, network observability, monitoring, UI, any of that, our email is observability-pm@redhat.com. So we're happy to take any questions and send documentation answers that we have. If you have requests for us, something that we haven't thought of yet, we'd love to hear it. So we're always open at that email.
Famous last words.
No. Yeah. Oh, everyone else on the PM team now is just like, no.
So Jamie, is the network observability stuff, is that dependent on eBPF? Which again, eBPF is a technology that I have some awareness of, but not a lot of knowledge around. So I may be speaking out of turn here.
For the network observability? Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I need to catch up with Mark Curry and spend some time with him and learn more and become smart on that.
Yeah. The more he presents and in forums where I'm also listening, it's a really, really interesting topic. So they're doing great work over there.
Yeah, I know Johnny and I have talked about wanting to bring them on and have an in-depth conversation here on the live stream, because I think it's something that a lot of people are really interested in. But I also think that eBPF is one of those topics that it's complex. And at least to me, it's complex. So anytime we can help bring clarity, anytime we can help get some additional details out there, that'll be good.
Yeah, it would be. He presents it so well. So
yeah. Yeah, Yogesh, has anyone upgraded from 4.8 to 4.9? Like Ingress, but when so for Ingress specifically, OpenShift does not use Ingress. When you create an Ingress, it converts it over to a route automatically. So that's probably why it looks different than you're expecting. What I would suspect is that, and this is off the top of my head without checking or verifying, the Ingress API that is being removed is probably one of the earlier ones, like a V1 alpha or a V1 beta or something like that. So just double check the version that's being removed just to make sure. Circling around, all of that being said, if it's a service that's provided, like one of the core OpenShift services, like we fix that automatically. You shouldn't have to do anything. It's only for things like if your application is deploying something, or your users are deploying something that uses one of those removed APIs, that's where you need to be concerned. Khalid, yeah, I like networking stuff too, but it gets to a point where it goes way above my head. I was having this conversation with Peter Lauterbach yesterday because we were talking about storage and all the stuff that's going on with storage and how it works with virtualization and how this changes, and he made this tongue-in-cheek comment about, maybe I should have been a networking guy. Storage is complicated. I'm like, well, networking is there's a lot of stuff going on in networking, to say the least. Like, and it's even when I think I start to grasp basics, you start to introduce things that happen at the clients, like eBPF, right, which is a kernel level module type of thing, and let alone getting into all the different routing protocols and networking. I can talk about VLANs with some degree of confidence, but yeah, it'll blow your mind. Yeah, there's a reason why, you very rarely encounter a network admin who wears multiple hats, right? Usually they're the network admin. Whereas like VM admins, it's like, oh yeah, I do storage too, or I'm also the Windows admin, or network folks are usually just network folks. I feel like that says a lot about what's going on there.
Yeah, I think traditional networking is very much like it's conceptually easy to grasp, right? Like especially if you're technical, like I think it's not bad. It's like when you start getting into like the SDN and then the different layers and stuff like that, I'm like, oh my God, what's happening right now? I'm sorry, Jamie, I cut you off. I didn't mean to do that. My bad.
No. I was just gonna say it's magic. It's network magic.
Yeah,
it is magic.
Yeah, it goes into a black box and it comes out the other side.
That's right.
All right. So for anybody who is watching us, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to submit those. Again, we'll do our best to answer questions and stuff like that. I'm trying to think of other things that we might want to talk about or we might want to ask about from an observability perspective. I think, like anytime there is change, there is some, and I don't mean this in a bad way. There's some trepidation about it. We as administrators, we are we have learned to fear change, and rightfully so in many cases. And I think logging, and the change from Elastic and Fluent to Loki and Vector is one of those where, like logging, a lot of times we have like legal requirements around what's happening there, so it's understandable that there's some trepidation. So I think from my perspective, one of the questions I would have for you, Jamie, is one is, have we officially deprecated the Elastic and Fluent solution, or
We have not yet. So
okay,
it is it's no longer being enhanced. So we're still doing bug fixes, but we are no longer enhancing with any features. So, but it is not yet deprecated.
okay,
So that's one of the things, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no,
it's
no,
one
go
of the
ahead.
things that we're trying to get the word out because we don't want people caught by surprise. Logging is a big deal. And just like you said, there are a lot of legal requirements often. There are a lot of, very heavy requirements on customers, partners to have their logging work. So we want to start now. We're
Yeah.
saying, hey, this is coming. We're trying to make this as painless as possible, but we are in the process of changing our logging stack, and so we're very sensitive to that. And it's one of the reasons I'm happy to be here to tell everybody this is coming.
So do you have any recommendations around when should customers make the switch? I feel like, and a lot of people ask, oh, I see this all the time of, is such and such ready for production? Well, we wouldn't release it as GA if we didn't feel like it was ready for production. So I think the question behind that is it capable of meeting my needs, right? Is there feature gaps? Is there other things that were there with, in this case, Fluentd and Elastic, that might not be there with Loki and Vector, that might cause me to reconsider the migration yet?
I would say that, and the message that I'm trying to promote is we're encouraging people to start now because we want to know the gaps before we deprecate. It's we want to help. We know that this is important. So if customers start now making the switch, they have major problems, then now is a good time to tell us before the deprecation is complete. We can work towards filling the gaps, but we need to know what the gaps are. Logging is everyone uses logging. It's a really pretty important thing within OpenShift everywhere. And so we are trying to figure out the ways that customers are using logging so that we can, help them in this migration process.
Yeah. So maybe a silly question: can you run both stacks at the same time?
Absolutely, you can. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know if it was a or B, not an A and B.
No, you can, and that's actually one of the things that we recommend is that you run both and then kind of blue-green your logging. So, start transitioning workloads over to the other so that you can understand how it works and make a smoother transition that way.
Rick's question here. Johnny, I see you responded to that. I didn't know if you had anything to add there about Pura.
No, I was going to ask Jamie the question. Is there any integration, or he asked, how are things going with SLO focused monitoring, so service level objective monitoring, so like from an SRE perspective? So reducing everything else, but also bringing solutions that like Pura into the picture. I'm not sure what Pura is. I don't know if you do, Andrew or Jamie.
I'm not sure what that is.
No, yeah, I'd have to. I'll look it up and learn what I can in 5 seconds. But if I has any alternative to OCS like we had earlier, Gluster because InfraArchitect doesn't want to use OCS, which is utilizing 3 EC2 instances. So first, just a minor terminology correction. So OCS was pre-OpenShift 4.6, I think 4.6 or 4.7. They made the change to ODF, OpenShift Data Foundation. Regardless, OpenShift 4 or OCS/ODF in all of the 4 versions is Ceph-based instead of Gluster-based. So it does have, it relies on the replication factor of 3. So for every byte you store, there are 3 for every byte you store in ODF, there are 3 bytes stored on the various disks that it uses. So yeah, I get, maybe some frustration for the people paying the bill on why that might be considered expensive. So Alternatives. So of course we have a bunch of partners who offer storage that can be deployed directly into OpenShift. Thinking Pure Portworx, among others. Gosh, my mind has gone completely blank. But there's a bunch of them that come to mind. In addition to, there's other external things that you can use. So, for example, you can use EBS directly inside of AWS. You can use things like NetApp's FSxN, I think is the name of it. All kinds of different things that you can connect directly in there. It doesn't have to be ODF, OCS storage inside of there. Khalid, you need a huge resource to do that. Yeah, you'll need double the storage space and double the all of those things. So yes, but I think, and Jamie, again, at risk of speaking for you, I think the point is you want to verify, you want to validate that it is going to meet your requirements, that it is going to meet your needs,
Absolutely.
without necessarily risk of missing something, if you will.
Correct.
So
Correct.
if you're okay with that risk, or you're comfortable that the new solution, Loki Vector, can meet all of your needs, then maybe you don't need to do that. Entirely up to you.
And Rick clarified about the Piro thing, and it sounds like it's a aggregated view of services they're doing in terms of SLOs. So he mentioned that Grafana may have like a similar service. So like, is there anything within the logging stack that uses the like an SLO type metric or feedback?
Let me, possibly not within the logging stack itself, within the UI, possibly, but let me take that back and do some investigation. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, if you want, shoot me an email. Shoot me or Andrew an email, or both of us an email, and then we'll get it over to Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does running both increase the load on the cluster? Yes. So I would assume that the collection and forwarding agent will consume some CPU, which will scale according to how much log data is being generated. Additionally, Loki is deployed into the cluster, so it doing its thing will consume resources. But Loki is an infrastructure workload, right? So you can put it on infra nodes, so you don't have to use entitlements for that, but you would have to account for that in whatever your underlying infrastructure is. AWS or vSphere or whatever additional resources used. Yeah, SLOs. Yeah, that would be interesting to know whether I'm putting all of these things together as you're talking through it, Rick, of being able to define SLOs and then utilize the data that's being collected by Loki in order to validate those SLOs and alert based on whether or not they're being violated. So that's an interesting one. I'd be curious about that as well. So we'll dig that up.
I'm interested in investigating that.
What's the best way to stay up to date with everything Red Hat related? I honestly, I don't know, because I feel like I'm in the thick of it and I struggle to keep up. I think it seems like just about every day somewhere inside of just OpenShift, the OpenShift world, there is a constant stream of emails of this got released, or this has been updated, or this has been fixed, or this is going on. Let alone if you're talking the entire Red Hat portfolio. So I'll say a couple of different things. So one, if you want like low level, the things that you're using, like, this patch has been released or these bugs have been fixed, the customer portal access.redhat.com and specifically the errata is a great way to do that. But that's very much a fire hose of low level information. At the other end of that spectrum is going to be like the press releases on redhat.com, where they're only going to hit the highlights. So for example, I don't even know if we do a press release, like a real press release for every OpenShift release. It's only when there's like significant changes or significant impacts to different capabilities. So somewhere in the middle there is probably where you'll find that. And it's going to come from a bunch of different places. Cloud.redhat.com/blog is a great place to see what's going on. The PM team does a great job of, with every release, there's always blog posts. And I don't mean every release of like OpenShift, but every release of every component. Jamie's laughing because I think you just did one of these blog posts. Like every time there's something that changes, there's a blog post that'll go out.
Yes. I'm gesturing towards my screen. all of these books.
Yeah. So that's a great place to look and to keep up with things, as well as there's a number of folks who post, technical things on there as well. Hey, here's how to do this, or here's what this means, type of stuff. So I would say that might be the best way to keep up with, off the top of my head, kind of that middle ground between high level press releases and low level bug fixing errata stuff.
Yeah, the other one too is I would say keep an eye on developers.redhat.com. Like Burr Sutter does a good job with like the Dev Nation stuff of like getting new things out there, getting people looking at new things, and or like, hey, there's this new capability that we kind of like played around with, and now we have a demo on it. So just keep an eye on that too.
Yeah, I think that's another one of those examples of which one of the laws, like there's Moore's law, Maslow's law, all of those things. There's a law that's like, the structure of a product will reflect the internal organization. So like OpenShift, like the things that come out of OpenShift all go into cloud.redhat.com/blog. The stuff that comes out of the cloud services business unit and sort of the Red Hat runtimes goes on to developer.redhat.com. The stuff that comes out of RHEL goes into redhat.com. So if you're interested, like portfolio wide, there's different places to go.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah. Let's see. There was a question from Khalid, I think, Johnny.
It was which produces more storage? Is it Elastic or Loki? Or which uses more storage? I'm sorry. Which uses more storage, Elastic or Loki?
Off the top of my head, I am not certain. And I think that's one of those questions where it just depends on how you configure them both. So it's hard to say off the top of my head.
All right, roger that.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember if Elastic uses the same sort of protection through replication scheme by default.
Yeah, I don't recall. That's why I'm having a struggle answering the question.
So, well, I know we're at the top of the hour. Jamie, I forgot to ask you before we started if you had a hard stop on anything. I do have a hard stop today at 12:15, so 12:15 Eastern.
No, I don't have a hard stop.
Okay, good. I was hoping we weren't keeping you from going on to something next. So with a few remaining minutes, for any questions that are out there, please go ahead and submit those over. We'll get as many as we can in before we have to drop from the live stream. But that being said, really thank you so much, Jamie, for joining us on the stream. This has been super helpful and very educational for me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the chance to get the word out.
Yeah, and I think I said before that we'll post the slides that have the links and everything. We'll post those over on SpeakerDeck. So I posted the link here in chat, but it's simply speakerdeck.com/Red Hat live streaming. So all one word, no spaces, Red Hat live streaming. It's also where we post the slides for like the what's new and what's next sessions and all that other stuff. So yeah, we'll make sure to get all of those links out to everyone so that way you can access those and learn more. But yeah, this has been awesome. This has been very educational. And I'm sitting here thinking, so one, I miss all of the artwork that I normally have behind me, but I'm admiring the stuff that you have behind you. And it looks like that's like a Wookiee or something playing a guitar behind you.
That is, so I play bass. That is Chewbacca playing a bass. So yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's great. So yeah, eventually I'll be back in my old office and I'll have artwork again. But I miss having something in behind me that's not, just the scrolling Red Hat. And Johnny just lives in a hallway apparently. So
I do.
Yeah. Hey, you found a place that's kind of consistent. For a while there, you were changing. Like every week, you'd be in a different room in a different place of the house. So,
dude, ADD is real, man. Like I can't sit still. I'm all over the place. So.
Well, I feel your pain all too well. That's why I have to have a specific setting. Like for me, it has to be consistent every day. It helps me. But yeah. So, anyways, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you joining today. The chat has been phenomenal. We love getting questions from you all. We love all the interactivity. So thank you so much for that. Again, if you're not listening to us live or if you're not watching us live, you can reach out to us anytime. You can reach me at andrew.sullivan@redhat.com as soon as I find the button to click here to show it to you. Or again, Practical Andrew across all the various social platforms. I will admit that sometimes I lag behind on things. email is a real issue these days, especially after 2 weeks away. I'm still way far behind on my email. Like probably 60 plus conversations behind, and each conversation is multiple messages. So my apologies for anybody who has sent me something and hasn't heard back. And you can also reach out to Johnny, Johnny, Jonny at redhat.com. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out at any time. So yeah, I don't see any other questions that are popping up in chat. So
I'm sorry if I butchered this. I really am. It looks like Yogesh asked about, or essentially said, let's do more streams on networking, and so I just replied back like, yep, definitely on the roadmap to do at least a few. Right, like it's a big topic, so we'll definitely get to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's been a while since we did. I want to say like 60 plus episodes ago was the last time we did any kind of deep dive on like SDN and stuff like that. We did talk about NM state and doing kind of low level, host level network config. But so that might be interesting to you, Yogesh, if you want to look up the playlist and look for that episode. But yeah, I think it's definitely time for us to go back and revisit things, especially now that OpenShift or OVN Kubernetes is the default SDN as of 4.12. So it seems like it's a good time to go back and really dig into what's happening there. So thank you so much for joining us, Jamie. We really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, and with that, I will give you last words, Johnny.
Yep, Jamie. Seriously, like you said that the network observability team were doing good work. You guys are doing good work too. So didn't want you to downplay like the stuff that you guys were putting.
No. The team does, the logging team does great work.
Yeah, I'm excited. I know, like my old customers. I'm sure that they're excited about these capabilities that are coming out. So thank you very much for coming on and talking about them.
Yeah, thank you,
Andrew. It was good seeing you again.
Yeah, likewise. All right, bye, y'all. See you next week.
Thank you.